Hello again. Back in chapter 1, I've talked about IP parameters as a dedicated subject. Some of the parameters were two types, telnet and SSH. Telnet and SSH, or SSH is the short for secure shell, are two almost identical protocols in the concept or in the purpose that their job is to make you able to access whatever device in your network remotely. Okay, we have talked about how to access Cisco devices. Before, you have a Cisco router, you bring your own PC, then you have to bring a console port and connect a console cable and connect it to the console port in the router and to your PC, maybe USB or a DB9 device, whatever, DB port, whatever. And this will allow you to access the router just like we have done in chapter 2, 3 and 4 so far by accessing the devices. Maybe in the pack tracer it will show you that's automatically happening, but access the device, you see the CLI and you start to configure everything normally. But after I configure the device totally and I want to send the device away to be installed in the network somewhere where I'm now in the office and this device is away from me. Okay, yes, there is some connection between us since we are for the same network, and there are some devices in the way that leads me to the certain router, and also these devices are meant for the same thing. But how can I access it now? Well, actually by using telnet or SSH. We will talk about SSH because telnet is almost obsolete because it's not secured, okay, at all. So telnet or SSH, let's talk about only SSH. SSH will allow me to, from my PC, my device in the office or whatever place in the network, to access whatever other device remotely, just from sitting in my place, in my office. Just use a username and password authentication, and I can grant an access to whatever device that I want. That's it, as simple as that. But what needs to be happen is that I need an IP address for my device, and I need an IP reachability, a ping between me and the other device that I want to access it. And this other device also needs its IP address that I'm pinging already. Okay, so IP for me, IP for you. Pinging must happen between us, then I can access you as a device using SSH. Why did Telnet become almost obsolete? Because Telnet do send this username and password that I've talked about that allows you to access the device, and also sends whatever type of commands or traffic transferring between you and the device in clear text. So just in case someone was sniffing on your cable, the link that's connecting you to this router, it would make it able, I'm sorry, it will be able, or this person will be able to see and read clearly everything transmitting between you and the device. This is the big disaster of Telnet. So Secure Shell came there because it's secured and trusted, because it do encrypt the transmitted information. So there will be encryption. So whomever tries to sniff your link will see just some encrypted language or codes, and he will understand nothing. That's it. Okay, so this is the big benefit of SSH, and that's why SSH is the only mentioned remote access protocol in the new CCNA exam. Now you will not find Telnet in CCNP. Telnet is not removed or alleviated for CCNP. No, that's it. It has been removed. You need to know only SSH. SSH is a secured and trusted method to log in the device remotely. Of course, anything trusted in the world that you want to grant the results, you will use TCP. So it uses TCP port number 22, encrypt the transmitted information. No one will be able to know what's happening. It uses the server and client relationship. You will need to enable SSH in the router remotely, and you will be the client that trying to access this device. So this is a relationship between you and this one. It's a replacement for Telnet. We have talked about it, but in Microsoft Windows, I also did mention that in chapter 1 that you will need to install an application in your Microsoft Windows device if you are using Microsoft Windows operating system to be able to use SSH, okay, which is like the return. Does the return support SSH? Because mostly I use PuTTY for SSH. No, rarely I use PuTTY. PuTTY is for console accessing. I use secure CRT, of course. Big, very important software or application that you must know and use for SSH, and even it does support Telnet in all of the versions of SSH and Telnet. All of them are available in secure CRT. Really beautiful application that you must use it. So secure CRT must, or maybe PuTTY must be installed on your device that is using Microsoft Windows operating system. After that, you will have to assign an IP address to your computer, some configs alongside with the IP address to the other device, the other end, the device and the other end that you want to access to it. And after that, you can perform SSH between you and the other device. So this is only the concept I'm talking about SSH. Some other thing that I have forgot to mention is that SSH, when it first came out, came with the version 1, SSH v1. SSH v1 had some vulnerabilities that were discovered later, some weak points in the SSH1. So developers did develop SSH v2, which is widely used right now nowadays. Okay, so there is difference in generating something called the key generation, the generator between them, to use SSH v1 and 2, and you will see this in the lab, because for the new CCNA you must know how to enable SSH on a router and on a switch in your network. So for enabling SSH in the network, let's use the backtracer. Okay, in the backtracer, what I will do is that, let me, how to make it remote. This time let's just try to use a laptop. It's the same as the script, no difference at all, just to make use. Maybe you're in the office using your personal laptop or the company laptop, and there is a switch that is connecting you to a remote router somewhere. Just some, oh please, the link, some normal links, no console port at all, but I will grant access to the router. You will see it yourself. But just before doing that, what I will do is that first I must apply some initial config on this router in the office locally by using the console cable. After that, I will send it away to the site to be installed remote in the site, the remote site, and I will be granted again later by using the commands that I will apply now. I will grant the access to this router remotely. So we need IP addresses between them. Let's use maybe just some classic private IP addressing /24. That should be enough. Okay, I will use .10 for the PC and .1 for the router. This is only switch, no needs for config right now, but we will configure access switch SSH for switch later. Maybe we will configure it on this other remote switch that is away from me. This one also, no problem. Let's install it from now and configure it later. No need for red ones. Yes, green. So starting from my PC, let's first do an IP add of 192.168.1.10 /24. So 1.1 will be my gateway, which of course will be the IP address of this one, of this device here, the router. For the router, just imagine that I'm connected to my router right now using console cable. So I'm configuring it locally. I need something to be done first, and those things are, if you don't mind please. Okay, let's enable first. The first thing will be to change the name of my device. So host name, what are you doing? Okay, so host name, let's make it my router. So triple I router, that should be enough. So I've changed the host name of my device. Second thing is to create a name for the domain of my device. So it's an IP domain name. So IP domain, this command is very important. This command, I don't know why in this type of software I must type it all. So IP domain name, let's give it a name and make it triple I domain. Okay, and after IP domain name, let's assign a username and password for the device, for the router of course. Username will be triple I and password would be, what do you suggest? Let's make it the pass. Please be careful for the capital and small letters. Nothing at all will be easy with you when you type capital letters mistakenly. You're using capital instead of small and vice versa. The capital letters must stay capital letters, the small one must stay small one when you retype it again. So I'm creating username and password. So far I did change the host name of the router. It must be, this is mandatory. Then add an IP domain name and create username. These are three things until now. These are the three things that must be done until now. I'm sorry. Okay, so after that we need to enable SSH. We need to enable something called line V2I. Did I just create username and password? I'm sorry. No username and password. I will tell you in a few moments why I did that. Okay, so what I was talking about. Where's my pen? Just talking will never be good. First thing is the host name. I change it. Then IP domain. Why is it slow? Okay, I've changed the IP domain name also. The domain name. After the domain name, actually what we need to create is something called the key generator. For the SSH to encrypt the traffic between the two devices and also to enable SSH. Step number 4. Step number 5 is to enable logging on line V2I, all the lines of V2I. What are the lines of V2I? Lines of V2I actually are, I think I should have talked about them in chapter 1 in the fundamentals of Cisco IOS, but anyway, V2I lines are your switch, router, or whatever Cisco device, how many people or how many end users can access a Cisco device at the same time. Just imagine you were troubleshooting a router, a remote router, from your laptop in the office, and you ask your friend also to log into the device to also check at the same time and use some show commands to help you. So right now there are two persons, two users accessing this router. How many device users at maximum are allowed to access a Cisco device, whether it was a router, switch, or firewall, or etc.? The answer is 16%. 16% is the maximum number of persons or users are allowed to access the device at the same time, a Cisco device at the same time. And each one of them, when it wants to access or when it grants an access to the device, a V2I line is reserved for this user. So when you access a remote router, line V2I number 1 is reserved for you as long as you are using the router until you log out of it. At the same time, when I do log into the device and you are still there, then line VTY2 will be reserved or assigned to me to use the device. And also from starting from line VTY0 up to line VTY15. So from 0 to 15, it's maximum of 16 user or 16 VTY line are available in Cisco devices. So we need to enable logging using VTY lines for multiple logging, of course, because if the device was in the office or close to you and you are using console cable to access it, then you don't need multiple V2I lines because only you can access the device using the console cable. But when you do access it remotely using SSH, then definitely and mostly the scenario that will happen is that more than one user will need to grant an access to this device remotely. Okay, and also there are other things in automation and in software defined networking, things that I will talk about in the final chapter, chapter 7 in this course. Some servers or some appliances, some central management appliances will need to have access to your devices to change some config in them. So not just end users like humans will access a router or a switch in the network, but there are other devices, other networking devices that will access other networking devices for some action performing or some for command or protocol changes. So yes, definitely in new networks you will need more than a single VTY line to be enabled. So we will enable logging using line VTY. I can enable only one, I can enable 4, I can enable 5, I can enable all of them, the 16. You will see it in the command, something very simple, not really complicated. So until now I have talked about 5 steps, and the 6th step and last step, which is the one that I have just deleted, is username. Okay, to create username and password. So I'll start with all of these steps using switch router first, after that a switch. I believe we have reached about 17 minutes, so I will start them in the upcoming video just in case you don't mind to make the video shorter. Instead of making more than 30 minutes, it will be annoying for you. This is the concept and the requirements for SSH. After that, I'm sorry, in the upcoming video I will just start directly to do it. I will install a new router and I will start to do it again. Okay, so to install a new router without saving this router, all I will do is that I will reload, then no, please don't save the config, confirm, and we will have a new router in the upcoming video. So thanks for watching and see you in the upcoming video. Goodbye.